Welcome and/or welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah and this is going to be my last half of March wrap up. I didn't do any updates this last half of March, honestly, because the last few weeks leading up, I say last few weeks, the last like 2 weeks of March, it's the 26th, the 27th now, and I'm filming this a little early, but I didn't read a lot. It wasn't until like the last 4 days and I finally finished a handful of things back to back to back. I'm not a monogamous reader. I read multiple things at once, and because of that, things like this happen where I have a bunch of stuff on the go and I don't finish it all for a long time, and then I finish stuff rapid fire. So we are at one of those rapid fire finish moments, and so I have a few things to talk about. I am going to talk about these my least favorite to my most favorite so I can simply get this first review out of the way, because evidently this is a hot button thing right now. So the book I liked the least that I have read these past couple weeks is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. This was not good. For a longer review, I highly recommend you go and watch My Name is Martinez. She did a fantastic review on her channel. I agree with everything she said. I was finishing this book up when that one was posted, so I finished the book and watched the video, and it's pretty much spot on. But the short version is, one, this book was not very well written. It has some possibility, like there is a little bit of there's potential there for the author, but she needs a lot of editing. She needed a little more attention with editing, from the way her writing was coming across very choppy, very redundant, very repetitive to what she was telling us, and that we got little to no world building. There was no one really in this world besides our main characters. Everyone else was a prop or set dressing, and even then we didn't have a lot of them. We had her family and a handful of her childhood friends who were important to the story. Otherwise there was like no people really, except for her targets and that sort of thing. And two, this is a very bad romance. So the quick summary of this is that Ru Ying is a young woman in a land, I think it's pronounced Erland. It is a Chinese-inspired fantasy world, and this land is being colonized by the Romans. And yes, these are the Romans that you think of when you think Romans. They have come to this land through a means, and they are colonizing it, taking it over with advanced weaponry, planes, guns, that sort of thing. Her people all have, well, not all, but they have magic, and their magic is weakening. It has weakened over time, so there aren't very many people who have the magic in her world, but it is something they were known for, and it is what helped their empires grow. She is blackmailed by a Roman prince to do his dirty work, assassinate people, and this is their seeming romance. From that really short description, I feel like you could probably see the big glaring problem with this book, in that this is the prince of a people who are subjugating her people. They are drugging them en masse with opium, which is basically opium, and then they are massacring them, pushing them under the heel of their rule. They are colonizing them. They are obliterating this country and this people's cultures, all this stuff. And she seemingly really falls in love with this prince. Now, the reason I hesitated right there, she seemingly has, is I have a theory that this was one of two things. Either the author was trying to do a shatter me moment in which the main male love interest is, or not the main, but one of the love interests is not actually bad. He's good, which again, I genuinely find disgusting based off this guy, his behavior, what he did, other things the author has said, which I'll get back to in a moment. Or she is trying to do an ACOTAR love triangle kind of thing, where the second book, the love interest abruptly switches to her childhood best friend, who we meet at the beginning of the book. I suspect that based on the feedback, we'll say the reviews that have come out of people who are like, this is gross, that's going to be what they do. If the second book hasn't already been, finalized out, I suspect that they'll abruptly change the romance over to that childhood friend. But regardless, this was very uncomfortable to read. I didn't have fun with this. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the fact that we had absolutely no world building, very few characters, no real depth to it at all. It was just an angry girl being angry to like 45%, and then all of a sudden her heart is fluttering when this guy who abuses her and treats her like garbage looks at her. He really does abuse her. This is like, I'm gonna smack you upside the face and then I'm gonna hold you while you cry kind of levels of manipulation. It's not cool. And the note that I was going to get back to is the author herself. Let me reposition here. The author herself draws a parallel between the Roman Empire in this book and Unit 731 from World War II. I strongly encourage you to Google that. That was reprehensible, is a war crime. This is real stuff in history, and that was a close tie to her personal family history. So I genuinely hope that they take that reference, first off, out of the print version, because based on the romance, it's gross. I didn't enjoy this. I didn't like the things that were being insinuated. I didn't like the romance. It just wasn't good. I gave it a star. I was gonna give it 2, frankly, to be honest with you. I was gonna give it 2 stars just for effort. But then when I went to review, they have actually locked the reviews on Goodreads, which I suspect is a move on the publisher and the author's part, because I think she's getting mad that people are giving it 1 stars and 2 stars. So it's getting a 1 star. Moving on. The next book was okay. This one was A Season of Monstrous Conceptions by Lena Rather. This is a 3 star, so everything else I've read the past couple weeks has been really good. Besides these 2 were one was bad and this one was meh. This is a novella. This is about Sarah. She is a midwife in 18th century London, and during this time of her midwife apprenticeship, there is a lot of queer births, as they call them. These are babies. I'm supposed to say young men and women, but babies being born with gills or tails or horns, basically fey touched. And this is a novella about her discovering why and using her own sort of abilities to stop it. This one was kind of, what can I say, standard fare. This felt very familiar. This is a story I feel like I've read before. The characters are a little flat. She's just an independent, arrogant girl who gets taken advantage of. Wow, I can't words today. She gets taken advantage of by a man who then tries to use her abilities, her power, her knowledge to do something bad, and she has to fix it, and she is saved by a romance. That's it. I can't really say much more without spoiling it. The story was also written very coldly. I like Lena Rather. I've actually read her other duology of novellas. Sisters of the Vast Black, I think was what it was called. Nuns in Space I remember always calling it that in my head. I like that duology. I think there were 2 stories in that world. But this was just so cold. It's so cold that I was able to read about childbirth and like stillbirth without having a problem with it, and that is something I don't read about. But this was so cold and disconnected that I was able to. So that's kind of an indication of a problem, I think, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. I gave it a 3. I didn't hate my time, but I didn't really enjoy my time. I read it because I had it as an arc. It was fine. It was fine. So moving on to the things I did enjoy. Let's just get to the things I did enjoy. And they're all physical. I believe, nope, I take that back. One is digital. Let's do that one first. That would be Court of Wanderers by Rant. This is the sequel to Silver Under Nightfall. I can't talk. The sequel to Silver Under Nightfall. And this is the second book in this duology, the end of it. I thought this was going to be a trilogy, but it is going to be a duology. I had a couple of small complaints about this one, but overall, having read it in Listen Distance, much like Silver Under Nightfall, I actually end up really enjoying this and the story it told. So this takes place exactly after the ending of Silver Under Nightfall. Remy, Song, and Malik are recovering from a fight with the Night Empress. I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm going to try not to. And they have to make their way to Malik's fortress to recover and recuperate. After that, they then have to deal with the other courts, the other vampire courts, and bring them together to try and stop the Night Empress. So this, I'm having so much trouble talking today, y'all. This ties up almost all the loose ends at the end of Silver Under Nightfall. There are a few left hanging, and I'm wondering if the author is hoping to write some more books in this world. If so, I would pick them up quite happily. This continues the vampire anime bullshit that I really loved with the first one, and we get a lot of fight scenes, we get a lot of political play in this one. One of my biggest complaints about this, though, there are moments in the story in which politics are at play, and for some reason the vampires in this have to use sex as political maneuvers. A lot of them have human familiars. These are people who follow them around. They're in sexual, physical relationships with the vampires, and they serve the vampires, and it's, I guess, seen as a sort of power dynamic, a sort of show of power if you have people like this. And Remy has to do some public sex acts on his lovers. Again, I'm trying not to spoil this, but it's really hard to talk about anything about this without spoiling the first book. All that to say, it was just so cold and weird. I'm not sure if the scenes were meant to tantalize, like sex scenes usually are, or if they were meant to be that cold, but they were really cold. Also, there are scenes where they are actively having sex, and they're so, like, it's the weirdest thing I've ever read. They are, like, in the act. At one point, Song is on top of Malik, and it's talking about her riding him, but they're talking about politics and how one court is against the other and all that stuff, but they're going, and I'm just like, ew, no thank you. It was so weird. Those scenes, I wish we didn't have those. I wish maybe we had found another way to have these conversations, right? You know, over a dinner table, or, I know they're vampires, they don't eat dinner, maybe in the sparring yard. Not in the bed. I don't want to know what you're doing, talking politics while you're... I read romance, y'all. I see sex scenes all the time. I'm not a prude, but these were just so cold. It was really uncomfortable. Anyway, also a large part of this is Remy being like, oh, what do I like with sex? And oh, am I in love with him? Boy, sir, my friend. That aside, I liked what the story did. I liked what they explored. I liked the, again, vampire anime bullshit. I just wish we didn't have the vampire anime sex part. It was so cold and uncomfortable and awkward to read about. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say about that bit. Moving on to the physical books. Saga Press sent me a copy of The Haunting of Velkwood. I hadn't heard about this before, but I do like horror books, ghost stories, and that's what this is. It is a very short story about Sarah, who is this the second book about Sarah I read this month? No, Talitha. Whew, I was like, what? I had the names wrong. This is about Talitha Velkwood, who is one of 3 survivors of Velkwood Street. When she was in college, her and 2 of her friends visited home briefly and then left to go back to college, and when they left, the street that they lived on disappeared under this big silvery dome. And no one can go into the dome, no one comes out of the dome, and this dome has been in place for like 20 years. Everyone assumes that those inside died. It's basically a no man's land, a dead land at this point. And she is approached at the beginning of this novel and asked to investigate it, because they have found recently that the 3 girls, women at this point, are able to cross into Velkwood Street. Her friend Grace crossed and then ran away and has not come out of her house since. So that leaves Brett and Talitha, and Talitha agrees to do so. And this is a story, like it's very short, I don't want to spoil it. She goes in there to try and find her 8-year-old sister who was trapped under the dome. And it is just a story about what you run away from in your childhood, what do you leave behind, and the ghosts and the pain that those things cause. There is a lot of on-page homophobia in this. There is an on-page death of a young teenage girl. It's very dark stuff, and our characters are very melancholy and trapped in their heads, and they're very frustrating. Talitha and Brett are very frustrating characters to read about, as Brett does show up halfway through the book, and the 2 of them have to work through their old feelings for each other and the street. And there is also a lot of unpaged talk about domestic abuse, implied domestic sexual assault on a father on his daughter, things like that. It's dark, but it's a bit of a gut punch, and I enjoyed what she was doing with this and where she took it, and how Brett and Talitha came out on the other side. And I even liked Grace's story as well. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I'm going to keep it on my shelves for a while. I'll probably reread it in a few years and see, but I really did like it for what it was trying to say and what it did, and how neatly she packaged everything up. I thought it was great. The next thing I read was Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I audio and physically read this, so it's a mix of both. I liked this. I didn't love this. I feel like a rare breed of people who, I don't adore Brandon Sanderson, but I don't hate Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is like McDonald's. I'll eat it / read it every now and again, and I'm not going to complain when I do. I think that is the McDonald's analogy, at least. His writing is very consumable. It's very approachable, and that has led to his popularity. There's nothing wrong with that. And this was one of those. It was very fun. It was very entertaining. I really liked this because Tress and Charlie are very cute at the beginning of this, and the cup thing really was not relatable, but my grandfather was a lumberjack. He traveled the states, and he sent teacups back to my grandmother. She was much younger than him, and he was an older guy, and he always just bought her teacups because he didn't know what else to buy her. And so I have a big collection of teacups. There's one right here. I have a big collection of teacups that he sent her in the, that point, what was it, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, from all over the states. And so Tress and Charlie and the cup thing, I liked that. It was cute. I had an emotional attachment to that idea. It was fun. Later on in the book with the spores, fantastic idea. I love his execution. I love the way his brain thinks, Brandon's. So I liked the magic. It was fun. I give it a 4. It's not like the best book I've ever read, but it was very fun, and I liked the way it ended. I kind of saw the twist coming. I knew who was who. If you know the twist character. I knew what that was from the moment we met him. So it was just a matter of waiting for it, but I was very happy to see it when it happened. Also, Hoyd is fantastic. Hoyd was hilarious. I haven't finished or caught up on the Stormlight Archive, so I'm not super familiar with Hoyd. It was my first time actually getting a lot of Hoyd, and he cracked me up the whole time. He's the narrator of the book. I didn't summarize that, but I don't really know that I need to. Tress is a young woman on an island, and her love interest is a boy named Charlie. Charlie is sent off to this sorceress who is super evil, doesn't give people back, and has maybe a ransom on him, and Tress decides to save him. And it's her pirate journey to save him. That's it. Next up, I have my 2 favorite books of the month so far. First is Welcome to Harak. This is by Alex Gilbert. This is Calamitous Bob, book 4. Another one I feel like I can't talk a whole lot about. These books continue to get better as we go. So the first couple books, I complained that there were some questionable language in them. That's pretty much fallen off completely. Alex Gilbert's writing has grown. He has grown clearly as a writer in the span of time between what was the last one that had issue, book 2? 2 and 3. 3 and 4 have been fantastic. Loved this. We finally see Viv establish the new kingdom, almost village, town, outpost that she was defending. She has officially gotten its safety and established a new home base, but she has to leave because of her heavy attunement with black magic. Her body is going to eventually reject it, and she is going to die within the year. So she has to leave and find the magic school, the mage school in Hellock, to learn to recover from this, to get her body used to her magic, that sort of thing. So she leaves Harak, which is the place she founded, and she is trying to get to Hellock, and things never go the way they should for poor Viv. And this is, almost all of this is that journey. The first chunk is their final defense against the prince who wanted to destroy them, and then it's a journey book. It ended on an interesting note in that Viv is now separated from her normal party, so I'm very excited to see them get back together, hopefully in book 5, Disaster Classes, which I'll read very soon. There is not a physical copy available of that yet, but I will buy it as soon as it is. I have it on Kindle right now, and I'm going to, like I said, pick it up real soon. And the last book, the highest rated book that I read this month, is The Emperor and the Endless Palace by Justinian Huang. I love this. I love this. So good. This is not for everybody. This is not for everybody, I'll tell you that now. This is the epic love story between two men. They go by River and Joey in our present day chapters, but we also have chapters from 1740 and also from 4 BCE. And they have been living on and off, reincarnated in different times over 2,000 years. And we get these 3 snapshots to find out why and where, what went wrong to trap them in this loop, this endless palace of reincarnations. And wow, it's really good. There is a lot, and this is what I've seen, the complaints that I have seen. I'm not going out of my way, but because I loved it, I love it's good. But the few complaints I've seen is that a lot of people are bothered by the very casual use of sex on page, and it's just, that is what, especially in the 4 BCE period, one of the characters, he uses sex very freely to get what he wants from who he wants it from, and like it's just there. In contrast to A Court of Wanderers, it's not used to tantalize, but it is used as a matter of fact, and it is a little cold, but it is necessary for what he wants. Whereas in Court of Wanderers, it was just awkward. It felt awkward. So that's an interesting like foil to me, having read both. I did not like that, the way it was done there, but here, the way he uses it to get what he wants it's interesting. It's fascinating. And in 1740, we see a young man and a doctor and then a fox spirit. And then again, like I said, in present day, River and Joey. River is out at a party. He takes some drugs that leave him very addled. It's the first time he'd ever taken anything like that. And he is found and helped by Joey, who realizes who he is. But River does not remember who Joey is. And it is the 3 timelines, these 3 times they have lived and come together, and what has trapped them in this way. This is not a HEA, so if you are a traditional romance reader who reads for the happily ever after, that's not what this is. It does not have one. I liked the ending of this. It was very bittersweet, but it's not an HEA. I just loved the complexity of this and the way the story is written, how it's intertwined. The way in the end we're left wondering what causes this, and then the reveal, and then how are they going to get out of this, that sort of thing. It was just so good. It was, I loved it. I absolutely adored this. I will note, I found very interesting the author's note. He makes sure to mention that the 4 BCE timeline with the Emperor and the Young Man, the beginning timeline, that's loosely based on a real emperor who married a man and what happened with their empire. And I think the 1740 timeline was also loosely based on some real figures in history, but I'm not sure on that one. I'd have to recheck the notes, but I know that the emperor timeline was. It's fascinating. But this was so good. Bittersweet ending, not an HEA, but so beautifully drawn and written. I adored this. This is like my 1 6-star read of the month so far that I can think of off the top of my head. I would have to check my list, but this was fantastic. I loved it. My copy is actually misprinted. I just got it today, but I am getting another copy hopefully in the next few days. I already ordered a recopy and I'm going to send that back. So let's see. What all have I read this month? Yeah, this is going to be my best book of the month. This is the one that stood out. I want to double check because memory issues. This is the best book of the month for me. So not for everybody, but incredible. So that is it for what I have read these last couple weeks. I am currently reading not as many things because, like I said, finished all the stuff rapid fire. I'm getting ready to start Ghost Station by S.T. Barnes. Put the cover up here. It's an arc that I have. I'm behind on my April arcs, but that's okay. I'll get caught up. So I'm going to start that today. I am also rereading The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. I need to do my pages for the day on that one. And I am reading some manga. On that note, I just wanted to show. Look at this creepy This is what it looks like, but it's terrifying. That is terrifying. But you know what? It's very fun. I can't wait. It's a Junji Ito. If you don't know, he's a very famous horror mangaka, and I am very excited for that. It's called Stitches. I'll probably read that tonight. That's it. As far as novels that I have read, I will talk to you guys again soon. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know down below what you've read of this stuff. What are your thoughts? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye.